afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today. It's Ali, Coram, and Ken Shreve here with a breakdown of the action in today's session, Wednesday, April 10th, where we had the CPI report, we had Fed minutes. Ken, how did the market weather that storm?
Well, for the Nasdaq to be down less than 1%, I have to tell you, it is pretty amazing to me because that 10-year yield was up 19 basis points or something like that. Interest rates soared, so we'll get into all of that. But all in all, not too bad a session. Let's talk about Axon Enterprise. AXON, known for its taser stun guns, but they've branched out into a whole bunch of new markets. Aries Management in the investment management group, ARES is the symbol there. And finally, Cava, fast-growing restaurant chain, recently came public and making a good test of its 10-week moving average.
Yeah, definitely some standouts from today to check in on there. Thank you, Ken. We will do that. But first, let's take a look at the major indexes. The NASDAQ composite today down about 0.8%, closing off session lows by the end of the day. The S&P 500, meanwhile, down a little less than 1%. The Dow off about 1.1% on the day. And of course, the Russell 2000 with that interest rate sensitivity and small caps down the most today by about 2.7% headed into the final stretch of the trading session, Ken. So we'll start here with small caps. You mentioned that big spike in Treasury yields.
Yeah, I mean, the yields are all the way up at their highest level since probably the first half of November, but you can see just a big breakout. That 10-year yield went over 4.55, 4.56. You can see up about 19 basis points. So that's a breakout, and typically that's not going to be, good news for stocks. Stocks aren't a big fan of higher interest rate environment, but again, to see the Nasdaq down less than 1%, I thought it was a pretty constructive session. So the reason you had all this bond selling today is that the CPI came in hotter than expected. I went back since the start of the year, and it was interesting. The core prices on a year-over-year basis have now come in hotter than expected in January, February, March, and then April as well. So this sticky core consumer inflation isn't really a new story, but the market certainly has dialed back the rate cut expectations. Now they're not even so sure that the Fed's going to cut. The first rate cut's going to be at the June or July meeting. It could happen, but they may be pushed out a little further from this point.
Yeah, so I mean, if you consider all of that, today's selling and especially closing off lows like we did, heartening somewhat.
Absolutely, and because you see the Nasdaq closed off its low up in the top half of its range. It was still down about 0.8% or so, but I think what's encouraging for the bulls here for the Nasdaq is just to see that round number of 16,000 pretty much coinciding with that the 50-day moving average. So to me, this should be a pretty strong support level here. Now, if institutions decide to sell and take more profits and we see more distribution, a break of that 16,000 level, a break of the 50-day means that we probably have some more, some more softness ahead. But for now, we'll see if the Nasdaq can hold 16,000 and the 50-day line.
Yeah, we shall see. Let's check in on the S&P 500 as well. Closing off of its own lows today. Intraday, we did get an undercut, that big downside reversal from last Thursday, but we did manage to close above it, and still some distance between where we're at and the 50-day line. Not a ton, but about 1.2%.
Yeah, pretty impressive performance for the S&P 500 as well. I was kind of watching breadth all day. It was absolutely terrible when the market opened. We were 12, 13 to 1 negative on the S&P 500. It was a little less negative on the Nasdaq, but by the close, breadth on the NYSE was nearly 7 to 1 negative. So that's the worst it's been in a while on the New York Stock Exchange. But overall, again, a fairly orderly decline here. Looks like we're going to get higher volume on both the Nasdaq and the S&P 500. So we'll probably add a distribution day to the count. And we've been talking about these higher volume declines that we've seen since late February, early March, and we see a lot of distribution like that. It can cause problems for an uptrend. But S&P and Nasdaq still holding their 50-day lines. We're cognizant of the distribution, including the distribution days that we're going to get today. But all in all, not too bad.
Yeah. Okay. Well, speaking of breadth, let's look at RSP and QQEW. Here's RSP undercutting Thursday's low, down about 1.7%. And QQEW looking even weaker here, can try to get back above that 50-day line, back down again today. Also a decline of 1.6% here.
Yeah, I thought the action in QQEW was the most interesting today, because if you look at the Nasdaq 100 index itself, it is still kind of holding right at the 50-day, but the QQEW is just kind of looking kind of a more detailed look at breadth underneath the surface, and it was down 1.6%. So weak breadth in the market today, and we saw that in QQEW. RSP, just like the S&P 500, still holding above that 50-day line. So lots of reasons to be cautious here. We lowered our exposure a little bit on with leaderboard in the model portfolio. We trimmed a few stocks back, and probably now about 66% invested in that area. So pretty conservative at this point, and we'll see what the producer price index brings tomorrow.
Yeah, but wait, there's more. So we'll see what we get with that. And yeah, trip to the 50-day for the indexes could be in the cards here. All right, let's take a look at Axon. Can AXON, a standout from today's session, up 2.3% in slightly above average volume. Looked like it was actionable here.
Yeah, no, I think it was definitely an early buy signal. I know we talked about it on IBD Live earlier today. Pretty decent volume. There was positive comments from Needham today, which maintained a buy rating. Pretty significant price target hike. They upped the price target to 400 from 315. And Axon is interesting because they could have rested on their laurels as a maker of tasers and stun guns, but they've branched out into new markets. They have a sensors and cloud software business. They've got body cameras. So just a lot of innovation always going on at Axon, and that's what really drives growth. And you can see the top line growth in recent quarters, 29%, fourth quarter, 33% in the third quarter. So pretty good fundamentals here. Great management team, and just a good example of a flat base forming above short-term support levels. Little trend line breakout today, and we'll see if this can muster a breakout. It's definitely a challenging environment now for technical breakouts, but get some good heavy volume here. It could work.
Yeah. And what I also like here, Ken, is that RS line blue dot on the weekly, which, could be expected just given the kind of outperformance that it had on a day like today. But good to see that blue dot showing up on the weekly here, no doubt.
Yeah, we have not seen a whole lot of blue dots lately, and but especially with Axon, the fact that it's forming a base, has not moved into new high ground, and the fact that the relative strength line is so strong, I think it's a feather in this stock's cap for sure.
It sure is. Okay, moving on to Aries in the Finance Investment Management Group. A nice, orderly, flat base depth here, Ken, of only 8%. And now the moving averages are all tightening up right where the action is.
Yeah, this is another setup that I like. We have two stocks in this group on leaderboard, KKR and Apollo. But Aries is, I think, is definitely worth watching here. Now, arguably, this is probably, I think, pattern recognition is probably calling this a third stage. Yeah, a third stage pattern. So it's cleared a few bases already. So maybe a later stage here. But just another good example, just like Axon, of what a proper flat base looks like. Holding support at the 10-week moving average. And then another part on the daily chart here I wanted to look at is that even when we had a lot of selling in the market yesterday, Aries came down in pretty heavy volume but held support at its 50-day line and closed off lows a little bit, and then had another decent day today. So this one I think could still work. There's a lot of strong performing stocks in this group. Another good name to keep an eye on, not only because of strong technicals, but strong fundamentals as well.
Absolutely. Okay, last but not least is Cava with a really nice day of outperformance here, Ken, up 5.7%. Volume coming into the stock, and right where you'd want to see a bounce, that 50-day line and that round number at 60.
Yeah, pretty sharp drop yesterday with some volume, but good to see volume come into the stock again. There was sort of a quiet upgrade today from Argus, which upgraded to buy from hold and gave Cava a $70 price target. So I've talked about this one before. I think there are certain restaurants you want to follow, and Cava just being in the early stages of expansion. A lot of people still haven't even heard of Cava. They go there for the first time and then really like the Mediterranean cuisine. So, early stages of growth. And again, a gentleman named Ron Shake is still involved heavily with this company. And he was the guy who drove Panera Bread through its big growth phase as a publicly traded company. So good pedigree here as well. And a good example of what a good first test of the 10-week line looks like. See the stock in the upper half of its weekly range. There are buyers in there supporting the stock after an accumulation phase. So lots to like here, and really looks actionable on a first test of the 10-week line. We're in a kind of a stuttery market here, and even though today's action was overall mostly constructive for the indexes, you want to be kind of hesitant with new buys here. It's okay maybe to try a stock here and there, but you don't want to make your position size too big to start. Just kind of nibble and see how it works.
Yeah, makes sense, Ken. All right. Well, thank you so much. And thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll be back with more tomorrow morning on IBD Live, and we hope you join us, investors.com/IBD Live for all those details. We'll see you there. And then we'll also see you right back here tomorrow after the close.